Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service.
Here we are again at the end of a rainbow.
The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. What is up, family? Today I'm joined by a very prolific artist with a catalog that includes an album full of Tom Waits reinterpretations, a collab album with Curly Castro as ShrapKnel, and his latest, latest truly incredible body of work, Load Bearing Crow's Feet. The latest artist to join and add to the recent Backwoodz Studioz and Wrecking Crew invasion of guests that we've had on the show recently. So I'm joined with PremRock. How are you doing, man?
Good. Thank you. That's a great introduction. I'm not sure I deserve all those superlatives.
No, you do.
Man. I'll try to hold up my end of the bargain.
You've been making a huge imprint on my life musically, and I feel like a lot of others. Like this last album, I think has really done some good shit for you. I feel like it's introduced you to a lot of new fans, and just generally, it's a great body of work, which we'll get into for sure. But one thing I want to start with is in support of your fellow ShrapKnel brother, Castro, who's gone through some medical issues right now. You and a bunch of other Wrecking Crew people put merch and special things to help kind of fundraise in a way for just kind of supporting him. And you put this Kurt Vonnegut themed tee up for sale. I legit had it in my checkout, and I was doing the shipping, and I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this. And it fucking sold out, at least the size I wanted.
You wanted medium? Yeah, I only have one medium.
I'm not an XL guy.
I feel you. The medium was sorry about that.
No, that's all good. It's all good. I'm glad it just went to someone.
The guy who bought it is the guy who designed it, and he already has one, but he wanted to show love to Castro. And
that's fair.
Because I was filling out the info, and I'm like, what? And then it did go. It went to the actual creator.
Yeah, I mean that's good. That's good for sure.
I think he wanted another one for maybe his son or something. No, I appreciate that support. I just was with Green yesterday, man, for the first time, and I picked up the home studio that we were able to fund.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean Castro is going to be sitting pretty, man. Once we get, I'm looking at it right now, but it's Green is obviously our guy for Sonics and all that information, and he really helped us out. He got some, he used his clout to get some discounts. He picked out everything.
Nice.
He's like I'll keep it under a budget. We raised that money quick. Obviously the merch bundle thing was cool, but just straight up generosity from artists and fans and followers. It was, I know I could speak on his behalf that he was kind of blown away by it. So
that's amazing. I mean, it's easy to garner up donations. Obviously people are nice, but when the music and the content that you were putting out, it's just valuable generally, people are happy to support something like that.
Yeah, and Zilla kind of touched on it when he was like, Castro's dedicated his life to this, you know what I mean? This isn't he's not a hobbyist. This is, in the 90s he'd have a record deal and be a full-time rapper. Nowadays you can't really do that. You got to have some other hustle going on, or you're a very few select few who are working way more than 40 hours to be a full-time artist. But he's dedicated his life to podcasting and rapping and the culture. So it's when he needs something back, I mean, it's you're not asking for a handout. You're you've
earned that.
Yeah, you've earned it.
Yeah. And that tee got me thinking about, because obviously it's Kurt Vonnegut themed, about your influences generally.
Yeah.
And I know you have a very particular style of rhyming, and just you can hear a lot of different, I would actually say it's not very clear to see your influences, but you can just tell it's a very refined style. So I'm just curious, what were some of your key influences, maybe music or maybe even outside, like other art forms that impact your music now?
Yeah, Vonnegut's definitely one of them. I like, and I hear one of the things that attracted me to Woods's style when I first heard him was he kind of interprets pain through humor the same way that Vonnegut did, and that was interesting. And he has a song about Vonnegut too. So there's a nice intersection. Vonnegut and Woods are clearly, I don't know if it's clear, but they're two of my big influences. Like Ghostface, Tom Waits are like two of my other, like, I would say, like, spirit animals in a way. Like the way that the biggest thing I took away from Tom Waits was like the ability to access your own personal experience without having to currently be living that experience, right? So it's like we've all had a relationship that didn't work out, right? So can you access the pain and kind of the hopelessness, the disappointment, whatever it may have been, the regret, the longing, all of that with currently, while not actually going through that. I mean, that's the benefit of experience. So if you can access that as a writer, it kind of makes you a little bit unstoppable in terms of where you can go with topics. And I don't know, like, Waits never really said that, but like that's just kind of what I picked up on when I started to listen to it. So the dude's been happily married for like 40 years, right? But like he'll write a whole album of like down and out heartbreak, and you're
crazy
like, oh man,
shit,
is he all right? And it's like
Yeah.
he's chilling. He's like, you know what I mean? He's got his own ranch. It's not about that. It's about him being able to access it and being such a refined writer, and combined with the world weary kind of experience he went through. And then Ghostface is emotion. Ghostface is raw emotion. He's raw energy and a great storyteller. And I would say those four people I mentioned are definitely amongst. And Doom, I think that's obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, you can pick. I kind of pay homage to him every single chance I get. A one of a kind artist.
Your part about accessing life experiences that you're not usually you're not actually potentially even in anymore. I feel like that's really interesting because I find, like, especially in hip hop, like authenticity is something that's obviously very much like a paramount thing that people usually go for. Some people have problems where they're like, oh, they're not really living whatever they're talking about. But I find that interesting with that Waits and also Ghostface, not in the same way, but with Ghost, I'm thinking of like Supreme Clientele, just like had the anniversary of that obviously amazing classic record. And one of the things that, I mean, people obviously love the record. I'm not saying they don't, but some critique, if there is one, it's like, what is he really talking about? These are just words. Like, and I think there's a famous quote of Ghost, which is just like, would you say that about, like, I'm not even trying to quote it. I don't know what he was saying, but like, it's just basically like, it's like, would you say this about like a painting? Like, you don't know what it means. It's just the whole point is like what I said, these words, they sound great. They do mean something, but it doesn't need to have some like big ass, like conceptual theme. It just sounds amazing. And that's an art in itself. And I find that really cool to think about with hip hop, because I feel like sometimes we get, more than any other genre, there's such a kind of like a bias to be like, if you aren't like in that heartbreak right now, okay, that's fake. It's like, why? It's art and it's still real. You can connect to it because these are real things, real emotions.
I agree. And yeah, the authenticity factor is definitely true. But I mean, to Supreme Clientele, like, it may mean different things, and the words may mean different things at different times. You know what I mean? Like, it's multi-interpret. There's layers to the interpretation, which is something I connected with at a really young age. And it was kind of fun to just like trying to decode it and realize it's kind of hopeless. Like,
exactly. That's the thing, and that's what makes it so fun. And then if we go to your kind of like style of lyricism, like what I'm so impressed by is that just the way you formulate your bars. I find it's very unique. It's like almost like cunning, and like as a listener, at least, it feels like at least like how I think it's like you must be writing and then like rewriting everything like 10 times over before you even lay the vocal down, to where like it sounds a bit abstract, but not like incredibly like wild. But what I find is special is the way you frame things. Like I find you frame things and like your lyrical lens is focusing on a different part of a story or a different angle that a lot of people wouldn't take. It just feels very atypical. Like you could be telling a story that someone else could say, but you're covering it from like a different character or a different vantage point, and it's just like odd, but like very interesting. So like, could you walk us through your typical writing process and like how you get inspired to write about the things you write about?
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Yeah, I recently gone back to paper, which I typically have everything in like either on my phone or on my Google Docs, just because it's just so much easier to edit. And I do edit a lot. I mean, typically I'll look for beats, right? Sometimes I get sent a lot that I'm not really messing with, you know, and I don't really know where I'm going. And sometimes I'll write to a beat that ends up being a different song. You know what I mean? Like that definitely happened on Low Baron Crow's Feet, where I wrote that to a whole different beat. And then I'm like, oh, these bars can be transferred. They're not always dictated by what the beat is, right? That's how you kickstart it for sure. That's how you get it going. But and then I'll do like a burst. First draft is always like stream of conscious, and then I go back to it and see what theme I want to make a theme. You know, at the end, I don't want it to be like meandering, although it may appear that way sometimes. There is a theme, and all of it is kind of interconnected. And usually, I will probably do 2 or 3 edits, right? And then when I record, it's not always what I wrote down. I've always been a like really big freestyler. Me and Castro, that's one of the reasons that's how we met, pretty much. And freestyling, you know, gives way to like, you know, improv, all that. And a lot of times I used to not, when I was recording with Green a lot, back when Green had a studio in his kitchen, I would almost never write my last bar, and I would write it there.
Like the last bar of the verse, you just leave that.
The end piece, the closer, I would come up with there at a spot.
Interesting.
That kind of changed over the years. Like, no, I'll definitely have my end ready, and when I go into the studio. But yeah, I think the process is like, I wish I was more of a pen and pad guy again. That's why I'm trying to get back into it, because it just feels a little more like analog and natural and the essence, you know. But if I'm on the train, I write a lot of couplets when I'm on the train, or if I'm at work and I'm like talking to somebody and then I turn around and I'm like, oh, I gotta write this down. And it's just like a bar or two. And then I kind of put them together and see if I can put them into a unifying theme of that becomes a song. And I would say that's, kind of it right there.
And why do you think like you gravitate to or prefer to make music that definitely needs to be, or at least to be, in my opinion, truly appreciated, unpacked a bit, listened to a bit deeper, a bit more like consciously, versus making something a bit more accessible, which there's obviously like value in both approaches. But why do you feel like that's the kind of style you like to make?
I've always been a digger. I've always been someone who like wants to look for things that aren't quite there, right? I think that not growing up in a city kind of fostered that, because it was a little harder to access things. So I had to dig for my bits of hip hop and whatever, that I couldn't find at first. So that goes to like making beats, looking for sounds, right? Excavating meaning out of phrases, songs, whatever it might be. Like, I'm a big fan of like Easter eggs. Like, if you find that in a movie or a show, and then you kind of share, like, because I grew up pre-internet, so like you're like, did you know that if you watch this thing, you could see it here? Right now, all you gotta go to YouTube, right? But back when I was younger, like, you'd have to watch the VHS and be like, oh, you see that, like whatever. Or there's a secret song on the Aesop Rock EP, if you play it for like 30, 40, like, you know what I mean? Like stuff like that. I was always a big fan of that. So when it came time to like kind of really refine my work and music, I was like, I want to put these like, I want to reward the person who listens. You know, I want to respect the listener. I want to give them a lot of credit. I don't, when I hear like people do like a one-shot review of my stuff, I get it. I'm not like, I totally get it. I don't get offended. And if you miss the point, it's fine. I'm not like some highbrow, like, you know, a hyper intellectual, you know, person here. I'm just like, this is just how I write, and this is just how I wanted to get that thing across. And there is stuff you can take away with the first listen and you never touch it again. That's totally fine. But I want people to listen to it 10 times. Like that's what I like truly want, you know. And I recognize that's not even how I consume music sometimes, you know. And I used to have, you know, with a lot more free time, I would love to unpack things. And I would love to sit down and listen to a record 10 times, but I don't even necessarily do that as much anymore. So I don't get offended if people don't take the time, but it's an homage to like everything that I was interested in my whole life. It's not at the surface, you know?
Yeah. And do you think at some point, or was there a particular point in your life, your career, where you felt like not only were you just enjoying the rapping thing, you were pretty good at it, but that you're like, oh, I really see a future. I really see like a career. Was there like a particular turning point for you where you're like, I need to take this more seriously? There's something here.
So when I met Willie Green, that was like 2008 or 9. I was at an open mic. It was called Bonfire. It was at Bowery Poetry Club. It was a tremendous, I really wish it was still, you know, in existence, but these things don't last, you know. And it was like a community, right, where everyone would kind of like work on their thing for a week, and then they would come and then sign up, random draw, you came up and you did your thing. I met Green that night through Warren Britt, super dope guy. Miss Warren, haven't seen him in a while. And he was like a real deal engineer that I was like, oh shit, like I need to make a work. Like I need to like put together all these ideas I've had and make it cohesive and make a record, you know? And that was like right around I was 24, and I put it out on my 25th birthday. Then I was like, I gotta travel. I gotta see what I can do with this. I remember I was on the phone with my sister at one point, and she was in like Taiwan or Croatia or something, like doing art and teaching. She's a super dope artist, and she's like, you need to travel. Like that's like that. It's going to change you, and you need to, you know, see what you can find in the world or whatever. So then I realized that like if I put together this record, release it, then I have something to present to people. Be like, you know, I'm a legit artist, you know. And at first it was like I wanted to see the world, I wanted to perform for different people, and that was kind of the motivation in the very beginning. And then it was like I want to be prolific, I want a catalog, I want you know, I don't obsess over like being somebody's top 5 or anything like that. I don't really even keep a top 5 or anything like that. So it's like, that's not a big thing because it just feels impossible to me. But like, I want the body of work to be like something that you find in one day and you're like, holy shit, you know, if you never heard of me, and then you go back. So it began then. It began right around that time. And then I started taking recording more seriously. And then I don't think I really even hit my stride for another like 5 years or so.
And it was at that time in like 5 years where you thought like, okay, I've grown to a point as an artist where like I feel like I can get, so I'm curious because like where you are right now is clearly it's clearly not where you were like back then 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Did you always have this firm belief that you could get to a level like you are now where like obviously not only you have a lot of devoted fans, but you have like talented peers that you would see as some of the best ever routinely working with you and saying like you were incredible artist yourself? Like, did you see that coming?
I don't know. I don't know if I saw it coming. I would say when I was really young, I thought I kind of had delusions of like grandeur, perhaps, you know, like where I'm like, oh, I could do this. But then you just like life just really humbles you. So I don't know that I ever thought it would be like this. I knew I had the potential to be in these conversations, right? I knew that, but I didn't know, will life line up the way that it's supposed to for that to happen, right? It's a gamble, you know, it's such a crapshoot. But I would say the answer to that, sorry, not to cop out a little bit, but like yes and no. Like I knew I couldn't stop, right? I had a friend from Azerbaijan, Azerian guy, Rue, shouts to Rue, who he was like an exchange student in my high school, and I was like a senior. He was like much younger than me, and we had the same like journalism class or something. I used to come in Stone all the time. I was so like over, you know, it was like an elective class, you know? And me and my best friend were in there, so we'd always talk to Rue. We'd come in really high late and be like, Rue liked hip hop, so we would, you know, did you hear this? Did you hear that? And I remember he like reconnected with me years later because he came to New York, and we were like drinking on a roof one night, and he was just like, yo, if you never stop, like you're gonna make it to that conversation of like great artists. Like he's like, you just can't stop. And he's like, and I if I could bet on you, I'm betting on you now, like you could do this. And I remember that conversation, even if he doesn't. But it kind of solidified that like that's the number one thing. You can't stop pushing yourself. You can't stop creating, and pushing yourself, I think, is the key. Don't make the same song twice, you know. Don't you look at something that worked, don't try to recreate that. Make something different. And that's why artists like Arm & Hammer and like people like Pink Sifu are blowing up in worlds, because they're reinventing. Like Haram didn't sound anything like Shrines, and whatever they do next is going to sound nothing like Haram. And that's like, they could easily make Paraffin over and over and over again, and sell mad records, you know what I mean? But they don't. They dare to be great, and to dare to be great is to push yourself and create, put yourself in uncomfortable situations artistically. You don't have to do that actually, you know. You don't have to like be a tortured artist or whatever, but like, you know, and that to me is, I'm glad I still have that drive. The drive is as strong as it's ever been for me, and because of these rewards that are coming. Because
now you're getting like reaping the fruit.
I mean, and it means so fucking much, man, to hear like people like Illogic or Evidence like fucking with my shit, man. I mean, like that's just like, I mean, 15-year-old me is like doing backflips, you know what I'm saying? Like it'll never be lost on me. It'll never be lost on me. So yeah, man, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that did. Like people like Saifu too, and Arm & Hammer, they definitely reinvent the wheel, or try to at least push themselves, but they also like are two great, or three great, I guess, examples of artists that have been doing things for so long. And I feel like their last year has been their best. Like Saifu's been doing stuff forever, and now he's like, now he's really hitting a new level of acclaim and popularity, and he's only getting started. Like that's kind of what it's very inspiring. I feel like a lot of like you think of like obviously other people like Ruck Marciano, like there's so many artists that are blowing up a lot later in life, which just kind of gives people hope. Like just keep matriculating, keep pushing, and you may.
And that's the key. Every artist you're mentioning is an older artist, you know, in terms
and none of them really have like some big viral moment. It's just like a accumulation of their catalog getting better and better with time.
And I know that Woods and Elucid are going to continue. I mean, pushing the envelopes. I mean, I don't know. Is it Sifu or Saifu?
That's a great question. I've heard both.
I heard Sifu. But
I like Saifu, but I don't remember. I need to hear some, because he doesn't say his name often. I don't know what it is.
No, which is
it could. I think it is Sifu. Like I've heard you're like the second person I say.
Yeah,
it probably
so
is.
Anyway, Sifu, like someone like him, like that I like. I just, you know, I admire bravery, man, in all its forms, you know. So I think that, you know, just keeping them guessing is dope. I don't know. I don't know. Arm & Hammer, obviously I'm close to them. I see that. I saw the progress, I saw the growth, and I know that these dudes take it very, very seriously in terms of like what they're gonna do next. Is not what they did
Yeah.
previous.
And so I want to get into ShrapKnel now. So you and Castro linking up to create an album, like on paper, two heavyweights, strong rapping abilities with a lucid, mainly doing the beats, Willie Green as well. Like that's on paper, that should be great. But I find a lot of times with rap, it's with the collaborations very similar to sports, honestly.
Yeah.
There's a secret sauce of chemistry that can make or break it. And we've seen it so many times in hip hop. We don't need to even get into it, that there's just these collaborations should work and they just, they're okay. Just seems like they didn't love working with each other or something.
Oh yeah.
But I think with ShrapKnel, it definitely, you felt the chemistry. So, and I asked a similar question to Castro when I interviewed him last year, but in your eyes, like what makes your dynamic with Castro so special? Because you guys are definitely very different artists in a lot of ways. And just from an aesthetic standpoint, there's a clear contrast.
Yeah. I think that's what works well. I mean, obviously we're close. Obviously we're friends outside of music. But that doesn't necessarily make great music. You know what I mean? Like I have plenty of good friends in music and we don't even work, we don't even work together. And that's just like the way it is. But with him, like you said, we're foils for each other in a way that's like he does things and says things and makes things that I can never. And I think I do the same. So mutual respect, obviously that's a baseline. Do you respect what I do as an artist? Do you respect me as a person? All right, then we can go from there. Now are you do you want to create something wholly new? Now everybody isn't going to be on the same page in terms of scheduling. Sometimes you'll be like, why didn't we do this like years ago, right? And it didn't line up, man. I mean, like same for, you could say that for any producer rapper combo. When they made one song and you're like, why didn't they make more? Well, it's just like, who knows? There's a tour, there was maybe someone's child was born, who knows?
Yeah.
But with me and him, it lined up. We had the time, and we knew we were on to something after we did a song or two, and we're like, this is we're tapping into something different here. And I remember Kills being like, he's like, there's this middle finger about ShrapKnel, like when I play it, that it's just like, it's like kind of like you guys are just gonna do what the fuck you want. And I think that's what we did. And we there was the mutual respect, the pushing each other to be better. Like I said before, Castro is a very natural rapper. He's like Ken Griffey swinging a bat. You know what I mean? Like this shit is poetry. It's like, it just makes fucking sense. He could say shit I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. I'm like, that's flat. Like, and the energy, the energy of the two of us, I think complements each other. Whereas you could see it being like, how is this working again? And then you put it together. And I think you got to have the desire to make something greater than yourself. And we both had that. We have, how am I going to make something greater than what I can do? By teaming up with you. And one foot in, one foot out, you can always hear it. Yeah. You can always hear
even when like one of the parties clearly put more effort than the other. That happens a lot of times too.
Did this guy get paid and that was it? You know what I mean? And sometimes it's the case. I mean, it's a business, but with me and him, that was never what the goal was. And that I think that's pretty evident when you listen to it.
I think like there's just such an alignment in whatever like the blueprint was for this record, because it's so bombastic. And I feel like, I don't know, it's that like fact alone, both in the beats and the rapping, it's just explosive. Like it looks like the album cover. Like it's just very much like a combat album. Like it's just wild, and that's it's not something you get these days. I don't know if it's even like a these days comment or just generally. Like it just really stands out and punches you in the face. Yeah, the middle finger. I feel that too. Because
I mean,
like the beat choices were crazy too. Like
they were wild. I mean, it was a time of like, I mean, we were in peak Trump. It was like the world was, I couldn't really believe what I was seeing, like most people. And it dropped right when COVID, like,
it was a great time Great time to
Yeah,
drop
man. I
that.
mean, we did not know.
Yeah, you did not plan COVID for that.
I mean, nobody did, but I remember still being in contact with the venue for the release show, being like, well, maybe we could do this in April.
Yeah, that's what we all thought. Okay, just push this a month, you know. It's gonna be kind
Little
of
did
bad
we
for a bit.
know, man. Little did we know. So
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Um, I know that you and Castro are working on a second record.
Yeah.
I'm curious, is there anything that you can really tell us about it right now? Is there any like notable difference between the last one and this one, or is there like something standout quality that we should like be looking out for?
Yeah, we're gonna probably ship it to Green within I would say probably 6 weeks or so to get mixed. So we're very close.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So we did a lot of it during the pandemic. And I credit Castro for being the driving force. He was like hell bent on, and I was like, are we making this record too fast? You know, I don't know, but nah. I mean, we're taking our time with the.
Yeah, it's still been like 2 years. It'll be like 2 years at this point.
Yeah, with the tweaks and all that, and you know, different takes, sitting, living with the stuff. I would say it's like, man, what can I say? I mean, Elucid is not on the record, so that I hope, you know, is sits well with people who follow, you know, and really fuck with our music, because, you know, we didn't want to do the same thing twice.
Is it a one producer thing, or is it just a selection of
one predominant producer, and then
Okay.
there's a couple bonus, like kind of fill in the gap spots, like, you know, Green did a couple on ShrapKnel. It's kind of similar. It's kind of similar in that regard. I would say it will surprise people. It is not the same record by any stretch. In some ways, it's a little more matter of fact, a little less abstract. Like some songs leave no room for interpretation. You're going to get it on the first listen. You're going to get it, and then there's other songs that you're going to listen to multiple times when you start catching lines and things like that. I'm really back in love with this record again. I mean, I took a long break from it. I'm really curious to see how people respond to it. The artwork is absolutely out of this world. Truly amazing. That I can tell you. One core producer. The guests are not plentiful, but very impactful.
Nice.
And speaking of Easter eggs, we got like a hell of an Easter egg. Like we actually did an Easter egg feature that won't be listed on the record. And
oh, I like that. I like that. I love those.
It's just gonna pop out, and it's its own thing. So we're doing some cool shit like that. I think probably more hands-on in terms of like what the production was. With Elucid would send us a beat, we do it, and then he would send back some post production he did where he dropped things, and it would be like a different song. So that won't be there because we're kind of there for the beats and putting our imprint there. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited. It's a different record, and you know, either it doubles an expectation or people hate it. I don't know.
I'm sure people will love it, man. That's exciting. I'm glad it's something different. That's just keeps the intrigue.
Yeah.
And a notable aspect of that album and this latest record of yours is that it was both released under the famed Backwoodz Studioz imprint.
Yep.
And as I continue to interview and have conversations with artists that are on the label, release stuff under the label, is that it's really just got me thinking, like, if you could fast forward into the future, let's say like 15 years from now, 20 years from now, what do you think like the lasting legacy of Backwoodz Studioz will be? Like, what do you think they'll be remembered by?
I think just an incredible string of impactful releases that, you know, will go on. I mean, will live on. I don't know the ceiling to Backwoodz, like in terms of like sales, or in terms of like what Woods like, does Woods want to expand it and make it a bigger thing? Like, I don't know. You know, are we talking about signing, you know, bigger artists eventually? I don't know any of that. I can't answer any of that. But I mean, I would say it could be trending in that direction. And I think you'll go back to like, man, Backwoodz also put that out, you know, in like 5 years, you know?
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, like, you know, you're appreciating the run right now, you know, people like yourself. And I'm a part of it, but I also appreciate it as an admirer of art. I'm like, oh man. And you know, COVID and supply chain and all that has really kind of slowed down the ability to pump out vinyl and merch like that. But like, you're gonna look back and be like, I can't believe all these records came out on this label. And then I know for a fact what's coming out this year is myself excluded with the ShrapKnel. They got some monster coming out. My God.
Woods put out a tweet. I saw he put out like probably, God forbid, gonna happen 2022. It's pretty insane.
I heard some things that I'm not supposed to hear.
Yeah.
Or like honestly, like if it's almost fan fiction. Some of the stuff we're gonna get. It's like, wow, like you gave us like that. If you're a Breaking Bad fan, I'm like, you gave us an ending that we all wanted. It's like that sort of situation where, and I'm super proud to be a part of it, and to be a part of it from like, you know, kind of the jump in some ways, seeing things from back when come to this point. I think its place will be amongst the greatest independent rap labels ever.
Yeah, because it's the thing that's special about Backwoodz is like, obviously the run has been great, the quality's been great, but I don't see, there's no signs of like wear and tear. There's no cracks right now that I see where it's like, oh, there's some beef or there's some conflicts that I just imagine this run just dying really quick, because sounds like it's going to be going strong for the next, at least, let's just say 3 years. Like that's, I think, very mild and conservative view. At that point, you're looking at over a decade, which is really long. Like they're like all these big runs of like indie records, even like non-indie labels that are like hip hop oriented, they don't last very long.
Yeah,
Rockefeller was what, like 8 years, 7 years.
That would, I mean, Zilla would know that off the jump. I don't, but
it's not very long. Yeah, it was like mid 2000s. It was done.
Yeah, the obvious comparison would be like Def Jux, right? But like, Def Jux, the reason Def Jux, I don't know. I don't have any privy information as to why everything fell apart, but like the reasons was probably the shift to MP3s being a big deal, getting bigger in scope, signing artists outside of the niche that they had, kind of when they started doing things that were like kind of outside of the world. I don't see Woods doing that. I don't see interpersonal dynamics getting in the way. I don't see politics or feelings getting in the way. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on how things are going down. That's part of life. I don't see that being a part. I don't see that ever being the reason Backwoodz stops, you know, putting out, you know, the quality that it puts out. I think you got a really logical, pragmatic artist at the forefront in Woods, and a person who is not volatile in his behavior or demeanor. He's very consistent, you know what I mean? And for a great artist, that's pretty rare, you know?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. You know, you get like the highs and lows of like some of the greats.
There's some mood swings with him. He's, you know, it's like there's no like, oh, we're gonna put your record out, and then crickets like that. If he tells you that, he's gonna put your record out. Yeah, he won't tell you. He won't sell you on something that won't happen. He will definitely temper your expectations out. He'll be like, listen, this might happen, but I don't know, you know. We don't know what the world, you know, what's going to come, obviously, as we've learned. But I don't, honestly, to tell you the truth, I don't see any of those things happening that normally put labels under. I only see things getting a bit better, and hopefully that comes to fruition. Yeah,
and I want to move now to Low Bearing Crow's Feet. So, like we kind of talked about with your writing. And what you actually mentioned with the Tom Waits thing, which I didn't expect you to say, is very related. Like obviously you have a lot of emotion, passion within these songs that you have on the record, but unlike I feel other music in this vein, I feel like the way you articulate it, it just sounds really crystallized. It feels very clear-headed. Like you took what could have been a raw emotion and you just very refined. Like everything feels like very poignant. And one of the biggest things from this record particularly, it feels very centered around like how you perceive the world and how you perceive yourself. And I find that very fascinating. There's like a seasoned maturity I think I was reading that Free Music Empire piece where Dano got some. I think he like reached out to Willie Green. He said there's a wariness, which I really like. There's a wariness to this, and so I'm curious, like, how do you feel your life experiences impacted your writing on this album, and like, what do you think the overall kind of like vibe or message you were trying to give off with this record was?
Yeah, world weariness. I like that. It's true though. It's you know, you get to a spot. Now the very interesting thing about time, obviously what a broad concept, what a ridiculous concept, is that time colors your opinion and the way, like, you remember emotions, right? You remember 10 years from now, I'm going to remember how you made me feel, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember this conversation, but I'm going to remember how I felt during the conversation, right?
Yeah.
So as time goes on, it's interesting to readdress people and to readdress things and places when you go past a certain block in New York and you remember, this is where me and so-and-so broke up, or this is it, you know, it's just like, that's all in this record. And it's like that, you know, not trying to be pretentious, but it's like that, if I could like capture that, it's what I've been trying to capture, where it's like, you these are broad, super broad. Remorse is remorse. It's about remorse. But it's like really about, honestly, like, there's a lot of like commentary on racism in that song, you know what I mean? And how hypocritical these, you know, the people not only in power but across the board are, you know. But the general emotion is remorse. You regret something, or do you, or you don't now, but you will, you know. And it's just a stone's throw away of when it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And I think like seeing the world experiencing a lot of bullshit, some of my own making, made it easier to kind of frame where I wanted to go with the record and make the statements. I mean, to write a song like Prairie Burn was like, I had to go through like, you know, kind of hell to do it, you know, but it took years for me to like address it. And that's kind of the therapy of that was like really freeing. But yeah, I paid the cost to make that song for sure. That's not like, you know, that's not me imagining what that felt like. That was a tough one. So I think like channeling experiences, mild trauma, things of that nature, framing it in where I line up. Where do I line up in society? Where do I line up in art? You know, I'm in a Black art form. How does that, you know, how does that inform what I want to present? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to listen to me? You know what I mean? Like why is my seat at the table? Why should I have a seat at the table? You know? And that was, I think that there's a lot of subtext to that in some of these songs.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and these are just things I've been examining, you know, and it's like, and I think a lot of artists, a lot of non-Black artists needed to, and the past few years, like, what is your place? You know, do you want to be like, you know, one of these, their names escape me at the moment. I don't know, like the flavor of the day white rapper who raps fast. You know what I'm saying? Like, who isn't saying shit and you're inoffensive and bookers will book you because white people love you and you can fill out, you know, like that's what, is that what you want from the culture? Like, that's never what I wanted from the culture. I wanted to contribute to the culture. I wanted to be taken part of, like, you know, so there's some examining of that in the record where it's like, you have to be honest with yourself, you know, like this is what it is. You can't dance around that topic, you know. And I try to make that come through. And I think Green said in that same thing was like examining my place within the world, right?
Yeah.
And it's true. What is my place within the world? What is my place within hip hop? And I tried to kind of contextualize that a little bit, and you know, hopefully it came across.
Yeah, no, I think that was really well said, because I find like so many of these songs just have like, you could almost take a few couplets, a few like handful of bars, and that could be like the entire point of like another song. Like there's so much crammed in. Like I'm forgetting what song it is, but you have a line where I think you're talking maybe it's like you're someone's telling you this, it's like or it's like, stop it, you're an idealist, stop repenting or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I forget the line exactly.
Describe my weakness in a sentence. That's easy. You're an idealist, unrepentant.
Yeah,
it's a
that
realism.
line fucking resonates with me, because I feel like that's a huge thing. It's huge, like, flaw. I tend to just have that. I can't get over things where I just have this perfect ideal I need to reach. And it's like, damn, that one line, I was just like, stopped it. I was like, damn, that's so real. I relate to
I'm
that so
glad.
hard.
That
It's
was
just
a real
one bar.
conversation. Thank you. But you know, your idealism is also a superpower. So don't be so hard on yourself. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then see, you can just like unpack it. And I just love the experience with this record of being able to listen to it, because I think, because this dropped in June 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
This dropped right before I went on a big or not that actually that long, but just like a very impactful trip to Vancouver. Went alone, and yeah, very life changing in a lot of ways. But I remember that was just when I was starting to listen to this album. It came out as I like took the flight, and just to remember being like, oh, I really like this album. This is really good. And then keep listening to it up until maybe like 2 months ago, where I was like, this album is so fucking good. But it was like a lot of listens, like so many listens, where every time it just got a little better. But it really takes time to like just marinate. Like, it's really an album that really benefits from just marinating your mind for a long time. And then from an aesthetic perspective, that's something I want to talk about now, is like related to not only just like the quality of like your flows, your bars, but man, the beats you selected. I find that's an aspect of this album that also feels like it could only exist having been preceded by like a decade plus of like making albums, building a catalog, because the different producers you linked up with are just did like all drop like Brain Orchestra's beat. That's still the best thing I've heard him do. Like, that shit in Unreductive is so fucking good.
He's a beast.
Yeah, he's a beast. Just dropped a great album too.
Big
and yeah, I just find like the results of all that work, the momentum you've been on is really clear as day. So I'm curious, like, do you feel like you approach the creation from like an album sequence, song sequencing, beat selection, feature selection process a bit differently this time? Is there anything like new or a different approach you took?
Yeah. I very much wanted to be the focus of the record. I know that sounds whatever, but it's like a solo record. Obviously you're gonna be the focus, but you're not always, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Sometimes you're more an A&R than you are an artist. But like, so I didn't have a lot of features, right? So like off the rip, you're probably like, oh, Zilla and Castro on the first song, but they're just doing the hook, you know what I mean? And that was more my approach. I wanted to it was funny. I wanted Woods on the record, but like I legit never found a spot for him. And then it obviously came together on Bardot,
yeah,
in a really beautiful way. So I'm happy that it came together that way, as kind of like an epilogue to the record, is how I looked at that song. But yeah, I mean, I wanted Henry is like become a really good friend of mine over the years, and we're so different as artists, but we're pretty similar as people in a lot of ways. We're also very different, whatever. But you know what I mean? We had been trying to make a song, and we just never had. Like it just never came. And then I heard that beat, and I was like, yo. And I wanted that having Henry on it was important to me, also in the framework of Backwoodz, because he was an original, one of the more original Backwoodz artists, right? And you know, in terms of that working relationship, I'm sure we'll see something again from the two of them. You know, I hope so. I would love to see like a definitive Henry comeback record on Backwoodz with like, you know, some crazy producers and shit. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it'll happen. You know, there's times for that. So his feature was important to me. AJ Suede is an artist that I like. The first time I heard him, I was like, yo, this dude is so good.
Dude is
like,
so good, man. Your feature on his fucking latest album with Televangel. Holy shit. That album's crazy though.
I had to come with it, man. He's a beast. So he reached out to me and was like, yo, would you be down to get on my record coming out? I forget. This is like way back. And I was like, yeah, I'm just, you know, just tell me when. And then I was sitting with that Denmark beat. And originally, I didn't want anybody to be on the Denmark beat. So I was like, all right, these two Denmark beats, like these are going to be my songs, you know? And the more I listened to that beat, I was like, yo, Suede would sound so good on this beat. And I was like, you know what? You hop on my record. And he was just like, say less, like turned it around in like 10 days, rapped right through that crazy like break. Castro was like, fuck that thing. He's like, give me a format where I don't have to like rap through that, that crazy thing on Joel Osteen. So Suede didn't say a word. He just wrote right through it. And I was super impressed with that. So putting him together with Castro, I thought was like, kind of like, that was me playing like A&R curator, where I'm like, this is going to be ill. They were never on the same track together. So that's experience. Like that's making records where it's like, how do, I could have got a Woods verse because it makes too much sense, right?
Yeah.
Could have really pushed for like an Arm & Hammer feature that makes too much sense, right? But it wasn't, the songs, it wasn't there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it didn't service the record. Yeah.
Yeah, and too often people do that. And I know that may have, maybe there would have been more ears on it had I thought more like that, but it was what it was. I didn't hear a Zilla Rocca verse on this. I didn't hear, a lot of things I didn't hear. And it becomes, you have to be like, there's intuition, and then there's like being definitive, like, right? So like intuition is a precursor to like making a decision that's like definitive, like, and you've got to be an artist who puts out work and releases work. You've got to be definitive about when you say when and when it's done, and then that's that. And the great artists are, I don't care who you are, the great artists are like, that's a wrap, that's it, that's a take. I don't care if there's a typo, if I said something wrong, that's the take, you know what I mean? And that's letting it go, and that comes with time and practice and experience. So after you put out a record, it still feels like Christmas as soon as you put something new out, to me at least, right? Like putting out Bardo was just one song, but it was a big ass song for me.
Oh, it was a massive moment, man.
It was a massive moment.
Evidence beat, holy shit.
I was like, this
Flowers,
is like,
the booklet too. Like that was just a great moment.
I can't wait till people like will get to hold that thing.
Yeah.
That comes with time, and that comes with experience, right? Like, so to know when a song is done is like key to like all this shit. And then that's the main thing with this record.
I think you say that. I'm thinking of, I might be getting this wrong, but I know Woods' last, like the only verse on Eucharist, right? You know how like it ends like that? I remember he was speaking in an interview, I believe. I think it was Willie Green who kind of like, so basically he was rapping and then he kind of fucked up the last little bit. And then he's like, oh, okay, I should just do it again. He's like, nah, just like fade it out. And that's such a weird ending to like any rap verse, but God, like Willie Green has that intuition. He's like, nah, do this. This is weird, but like it sounds just crazy. It sounds so like ominous almost. It's just a strange way. It's eerie.
That's
unsettling.
That's a benefit to working with Green, like hands-on like that. We all work with Green, in terms of like mixing, but if you record at his crib or at his spot, he's got a really nice spot now. He's become so much more like experienced in terms of getting that take out of you, or being your like your enemy in a way where it's like, no, you're not going to do that. And you need that, artists need that, or like, oh no, we're going to keep that, and here's why, because you're too close to this writing. This is the best take you did, right? So in terms of like something like Eucharist, I think that you're witnessing the great moments of art where like you're like, oh, is that a mistake? It doesn't feel like a mistake, and let's leave it, and then it becomes a talking point years later, right? So yeah.
And could you speak to like because I know he mixed and mastered this Low Bearing Crow's Feet.
Yeah.
How involved was he in the creative process, and like how important was he generally to like the final product being so strong?
Integral. Couldn't have come out without him. The timeline was, this record was supposed to be done much sooner. All these ideas, all these takes, all these verses, all these beats were like on my computer, and then COVID hit. So then obviously the plan was to get into Greens, I think in April 2020, and try to put this, April or May, I can't remember either one, and try to start to put this together. Obviously that didn't happen. So, hit the brake, worked on some things, tightened up some things, made Prairie Burn wasn't even a thought yet. So I made that. I think the Henry song wasn't even a thought yet. And then I brought everything I had to Green's studio. You know, we were masked up. It was kind of like, I was like the first artist to come back to his studio. And, you know, he put everything together. You know, he's invaluable to me and other artists in terms of like getting the stems and, you know, this from that, this take from there and all that. It's like he's a super organized person and we are not. Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, all you got to do is give him the stuff and then, you know, get out of his way in that term. So, you know, and I redid a lot of takes at his studio. Yeah, I mean, a huge part, borderline executive production, you know.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm curious about this record is just like that name. What is the meaning of that title, Load Bearing Crow's Feet? It's a real mouthful.
I have crow's feet, you know, from age or from not wearing glasses or whatever. And I kept like thinking of that phrase, and it's just like, what are they holding up? You know what I mean? And they're kind of holding up your experience. And it's like, I said it, I thought it was stupid. And I said it to my partner, and she was like, that's so you. Like, that's like the most you thing ever. And then Woods goes, what's the title? And I told him, and he just wrote, ha, 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 like super long. And I was like, oh, it's a keeper. Like, I'm like, I'm big on if you Googling things and it does it exist, and it didn't exist. So that's, you know, what's
like, funny about you say that. You say this, but I legit, when I saw the title, I thought it was like, oh, that's some like, I guess that's some like biblical thing. I'm not very religious, but I'm like, it's probably it sounded very much like it was a thing, and you like maybe tweaked like a spoof to something that exists. I knew what crow's feet was, but I didn't even really make that connection. It sounded just something like some like random Bible passage. That's how it sounded like to me.
I'll take that, man. Yeah, the thing is like that's like one of my favorite things about writing, and is creating something that like didn't exist prior, and then all of a sudden it's real, and it goes from a stupid idea that you think is stupid to like real, and you put a name on it, you put an idea on it, and it's out, and it's like, whoa. And now when you Google Load Bearing Crow's Feet, it used to be nothing came up. Now all this shit comes up, and it's kind of wild when you think of it that way. Yeah,
it's kind of like it's kind of like you're doing fantasy writing. I know. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Iceberg Theory, but he has a shit ton of records with like August Fanon.
Actually, I met that dude way back when.
Oh yeah,
which I think is rare. I don't think
it is rare. Yeah. I had an interview with him. He was my first interview, and I feel like that's may never do one again. So like we'll see. Yeah, but he's great, and his Horn Monk record particularly was amazing from 2021. And I'm thinking of like a lot of it was just about like the idea of fantasy writing. And there's like this skit that I think is really relevant to what you're saying, because it's like, it's not only really cool and like magical, almost like the kind of concept that you're speaking to, but it's also very difficult to like pull that off, because the person in the skit was saying like, you know, it's way different for a fantasy writer or like a normal writer to just write about things that we all understand. Some movie based in New York, and they're just doing all this stuff. They're like, okay, cool, I understand. Whereas like a fantasy writer, they have to create like, oh yeah, this person's in Mordor, and like this is a fake place, this is a fake place, and you have to like make them buy in. Like that's such a powerful thing, and it's such a difficult thing to pull off. But once you do, it's special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, creating a world is I mean, it's one of the greatest gifts, you know, humans got, man, is to create a new reality or tell a story in a new way. And I never really get bored of it, you know. And if I do, I won't put that thing out, because then you'll know, and it won't be, you know what I mean? Yeah,
I think this record's probably like it's like a world, which is again why I like so much about this album. It's very much like you built a world, but it's very concrete though. Like everything you're saying is super relatable or very personal, but it still feels kind of like you enter, especially the production choice. It just feels like you're like entering into this world. Like the album sounds super distinct, like very much one thing, but you know, all of it's not actually very fantastical. It's very much, oh yeah, this super hits hard. Like that resonates with me personally, and that's a special mix.
I appreciate that. And also like going back to that, like examining your place in the world. One thing that I, you know, kind of arrived at the conclusion that I arrived at was that like themes there can be evergreen themes, there can be universal themes, right? And they're very broad in nature, but if you can put them in a relatable way that anyone can take away something from it, then then I think you're making viable, credible, interesting art. You know what I mean? So it's like I can't speak on what it's like to be an Indian guy. I can't speak on what it's like to be a Black woman, right? But what I can speak on are like my experiences that I hope that you and her or whoever can still take a piece away from. It's like heartbreak, remorse, longing, like looking, aspirations, inspiration, whatever it may be, being angry, being furious at hypocrisy, things of these nature. Like these things can be across the board, can be relatable, right? And that is what a good writer should do, and that's what I've been striving for.
Yeah, and I think you're succeeding. So I want to end it with this. What do you got upcoming in 2022 that you can speak on right now? We should be hyped.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a record coming out called Alchemist Blazer, which I've been kind of cryptically posting here and there.
And, I love that fucking name, by the way. Jesus, that is so fucking good.
Yeah, that's kills. I think he gave us like we had there's 7 members, right? So it's like
explain a bit about the structure of the group, because I find that's pretty unique.
Yeah, I mean, it's like nothing I've ever done. It was made. We all actually made it in person. The holdup that took so long, it was mixes and people wanting to do different takes and COVID kind of wrecking all of that. But we did it in 2 sessions, one in Vienna, Austria, and one in Toronto, and then we put it together from there. Every song written on the spot, everything, horn parts to drums.
So you mean like you legit just like you didn't pre-write it before the session, like you just wrote?
I wrote while they were kind of building these songs, and I would walk around, and they had this kind of bombed out punk recording studio in Vienna that was really, really dope. And they were just like, you want to walk around the city? Like, what do you want to do? Like, we're just going to be building and recording these parts. And I was like, nah, I kind of want to be here, right? And so I wanted to be, because I'm not writing any of this music, right? And it is kind of really dope to see these musicians kind of build songs. And then as I was there, I was like writing, kind of on the spot. And then that was like Friday, Saturday, and then on Sunday I put all the parts in, and some of the guys left, and then so what you have is, I mean, it's not really, it's not a hip hop record at all, really. And I'm not like trying to be like, I'm not a rapper.
Yeah,
it's just like I'm rapping over these very like lush and complicated, not complicated, but lush kind of arrangements. And some songs don't have any lyrics on it. Some songs have like chanty, things going on too. So I'm excited to see what people think of it.
Is it like a full album, or is it EP?
Yeah, it's 9 songs, but like one song is like 7 minutes long, so it's pretty much like an album in terms of length. But Fake 4, shouts to them, shouts to Chesky for putting it out. I know when I heard it, I was like, this is definitely not a Backwoodz record. Like, there's no way. And I knew their schedule, and I knew it wouldn't really line up with what we wanted to do. So I knew Fake 4 was option 1 and 1A, 1B. I wanted them. We all wanted them to take this record, and they heard it and they liked it and they thought it was a good fit. So it's been like kind of a collaboration in terms of everything what we're doing. So it's going to be interesting to see how people react to it, or some people aren't going to really fuck with it, but that's totally fine. It'll be another piece in the catalog. ShrapKnel follow-up is supposed to be out this year for sure. I hope that works out. Very excited to present that. Sedale Threat is Wrecking Crew, all of us together.
Nice.
That album is finished. Not mixed, but finished. And when I say the features on this one is going to be very, very exciting. Very exciting. We are rapping beside like legends, and there's 3 features that are real like head turners, and no one's going to guess who they are.
Damn.
So one guy who's really popping right now, who's kind of new, and then 2 like certified legends from each coast. So that's all I'll say.
I love that.
I think Zilla got drunk and leaked it on the Patreon Q&A. Castro got very upset. He so anyone who was on that chat, they saw his playlist when he shared his screen, so they know. But they've been good about keeping it under wraps, so I appreciate that. But excited to see what that, I think that's kind of, we're going to give people exactly what they come to expect from that. And that's a cool, really cool record, man. I'm really excited about it. Like we're really going in. And there's one song where I'm solo. There's 2 songs I'm not on. There's Castro is like the star on one song. Zilla's the star on one song. Got a lot of small beats on there, small pro, some interludes that he did, some cool outside production too. So yeah, that's like 3 projects really that should be all coming out this year.
It's exciting.
Occam's plays are first, yeah. Yeah, and I'm just, I'm always working on something. I'm cranking away at a solo thing that is going to be, I have no real idea. I have a title which I won't share yet, but it's similar to Load Bearing Crow Street. It's one of those things. But I don't know what I'm going to do or what shape it's going to take. I'm kind of collecting beats and going by. I have like, I don't know, 5 songs I really like right now, but once I have to get to at least 10 or 12, and then I start whittling down and making more. And in my process, the last 2 songs are always the most fire songs. It's like the first song, and then the last 2 songs are always like the best songs. You know what I mean? So we'll see how that shakes out. But I'm excited. I'm not.
I'm really excited for that Occam's Blazer, as well as obviously ShrapKnel too. And
I think you're gonna like it.
Wrecking Crew.
And it's just like I got to this point where I got these people checking for me and fans and followers. Like I'm not gonna let up now. That wouldn't make sense. What did Fonte said? Something like, God didn't let me run it back all the way to fumble on the 1 yard line. You know what I mean? Like I think about that sometimes. Like since you're here, like let's keep pushing further. Let's make more things. Let's think bigger. Bet on yourself again. I've already done it a million times, so it's how I'm feeling.
Yeah. And I'm feeling great. I really appreciate you coming on. This was like a fantastic conversation, and I'm awesome. Excited to fucking see you and anybody in Canada. I know you're going to other places, but for my Canadians out there, Montreal, Toronto coming up very soon. Prem, see him with Arm & Hammer. I'll see you March 18th.
Yes.
Hella excited.
Yeah, very excited. Excited to do these songs live. I mean, I've done them here a little bit in the States, but I'm excited to get back to Toronto. And I love Toronto. Toronto's a good city. Yeah.
All right, man. Take care. We'll talk soon. Yep.
Yeah. Peace. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you.
Take care. So there we have it. Another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some new perspectives and insights into what the greatest art form known to man in hip-hop music has to offer. If you want to support the show in the most meaningful way possible, it would be my absolute honor to have you as a patron in the new Rap Music Plug podcast Patreon. Through this Patreon, you will be getting exclusive content such as bonus episodes, exclusive album recommendations, exclusive playlists, early access to episodes, and more. And above all, though, you will be able to support the show directly in a way that will not only justify the crazy amount of time I spend on this show already, but allow me to cover some of the expenses related to supporting all of these great artists that we cover on the show through the website, and will allow us to sustain and build on this amazing growth that the RMPP has experienced recently. Big shout out to Dano of Free Music Empire, Levy, Mahima, Jeff, Fatman Toom, and Khalid for your generous support through the Patreon. I really appreciate it. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.